Hello everyone, Untapped MTG here with a deck tech just for you, fresh off the latest Hour of Devastation final spoilers that were released Friday. We've been waiting on these to finally come out to see what the set was going to bring us, and it has hit, and it's a little underwhelming. There's not a lot of just real great stuff in Hour of Devastation. There's some good stuff. There's a couple of good things that stand out. There is a lot of cards for Commander, which is kind of a surprise. I mean, they make new sets for Standard, but there's not a whole lot that I see that is going to impact Standard too much right off the bat. Excuse me. There's a few things in there that I think may have an impact, but I don't think it's not going to be anything just going to blow us out of the water. It's just going to blow us away. I didn't see any uncommons like Fatal Push that's just going to be $6, $7, $8 in the next couple of weeks. Of course, Nicol Bolas is going to be big. I think people are going to try to play him as much as they can. Samut may make an impact. I don't really see her being that powerful. But, you know, I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. But today we're going to have a deck tech. Today is Grixis Control for Standard. How can we play a 7-cost Planeswalker as early as turn 5? So we're going to get into that. We're going to pay some bills and then we're going to get to it. So let's go. LegitMTG.com is your #1 source for all Magic the Gathering singles, bundles, fat packs, boxes, Planeswalker kits, anything you need that's Magic the Gathering. Also, it has articles. It has vlogs, it has podcasts, it has everything from kitchen table to Commander, and the best part of LegitMTG.com is all orders over $2 shipped for free. So head on over there, get your pre-orders on, get your bundles, get your boxes, get everything you need, and remember, anything over $2 will ship to your house for free. LegitMTG.com. So how can we play Nicol Bolas as early as turn 5? Well, I have a deck that's going to do it. I think that it's pretty good. I think that it's going to work, and I will be playing it at the game day for Hour of Devastation at the first weekend in August. So, if you'd like to know what it is, here we go. First of all, we're going to play 4 Nicol Bolas. Yes, we're playing 4 7-cost Planeswalkers in this deck. 7 cost, black, red, blue, 4 colorless. You know him, you've seen him, you've heard of him. You know what the card is, you know what it does. I don't need to explain it. Nicol Bolas, God Pharaoh. 7 cost. So how do we get him out? How can we play him as early as turn 5? Well, I did a lot of looking, I did a lot of research, I did a lot of tinkering, and I have found this. Tezzeret from Aether Revolt. 4 cost, blue, black, 2 colorless. Tezzeret's +1 says you put an artifact on the battlefield that you can tap and sacrifice and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So, turn 4. You play your 4th land, you tap out, you play Tezzeret, you +1, you get you an artifact. Turn 5, you play another land, you plus Tezzeret, get you another artifact. All of a sudden you've got 5 lands, 2 artifacts, that's 7 mana. Nicol Bolas, turn 5. Then you start exiling stuff, you start exiling their library, you start exiling their hand, and then you just go from there. Or you could just set them to the face, turn 5. Tear him up. So, we got our Planeswalker package. We got Nicol Bolas out on turn 5. But what if they kill all our Nicol Bolas? What if they take all our Nicol Bolases out of our deck and then we're just sitting there with our hands in our lap and we don't know what to do? We got a little something for that. Of course, with any blue deck these days, we're going to run 4 Torrential Gearhulk because they are just that good. They flashback spells, they are a big body, they can come in at the end of a turn, they can do whatever you need them to do, they're just that good. So we're going to play 4 of them. Then we have 3 Kalitas, Trader Agate. The Vampire's still good at making zombies, the lifelink is going to help us because with normal control decks, you're going to be down probably to 10 or 11 before your deck can finally take off. Being able to play Kalitas to get the lifelink and also to be exiling creatures. Because zombies is a thing in Standard now. So you can exile their creatures when they go to the graveyard and get you a 2/2 zombie. That kind of cuts them off. So we're going to play 2 Kalitas. Excuse me, 3 Kalitas. I apologize. Now for the spells package. The counters and the kill spells. We're going to play 3 Disallow, just because it's a good counter spell. 2 blue and a colorless counter target spell, active triggered ability, all that good stuff. You can counter a Planeswalker ultimate. You can counter Ulamog's enter the battlefield trigger. You can counter World Breakers enter the battlefield trigger. Any of that stuff is really going to be able to help you out to win the late game, win the early game, and you can flash it back with Torrential Gearhulk. So it's like you have 6 disallows in this deck. 3 Fatal Push. Now, we've kind of backed off Fatal Push a little bit in Standard just because it's hard to activate the Revolt trigger. But as long as you have Tezzeret on the battlefield, and as long as you have an artifact in play that you can tap for mana, you can activate, or that you can sacrifice for mana, you can activate the Revolt trigger on Fatal Push by actually paying the mana cost to play Fatal Push. So if you need it, you got a 4 cost, you have nothing on your board that you can get rid of, nothing has died this turn, you sack that artifact for mana, hit their 4 cost creature with Fatal Push, and you can activate that. You know, you're usually going to have an artifact on the battlefield, and if you know you have a Fatal Push in hand, you can hold one of those artifacts back if you need to, just so you can get the Revolt trigger. So being able to do the Revolt trigger on Fatal Push is a lot easier in this deck than it is in normal control decks, just because Tezzeret's always making sacrificable artifacts that we can use for mana. We're gonna play Censor. We've got 2 Censors in this deck. It's a pretty good counter spell, unless you know they pay 1 extra mana. It's good for the early game. That's why we're only going to run 2 of them, or unless they tap out for something big like their own Nicol Bolas, we're only going to run 2 of them. But it also has the cycling ability, so if the card's just dead in our hand, we can cycle it away at the end of turn to try to draw something that we need later. We're going to play 1 Commit to Memory, just because I'd like to be able to flash in Torrential Gearhulk, use the memory to put everything back into my library and draw new cards. And it also keeps us from decking ourselves. Of course, it puts everything back into your opponent's library too, but you got to remember we're using Nicol Bolas, and those cards aren't going into the graveyard. Those cards are going into exile. So they're going to actually be losing cards. They're not going to get as many cards back, and you're getting all your Nicol Bolas's back. You're getting your Torrential Gearhulks back. You're getting your counter spells back, your draw spells back, your kill spells back. You're getting everything back. So, you know, it helps you out more than it does them. The only problem is you're going to lose your 1 Commit to Memory. But when you've made it to that point, if you're having to use that card, things have gotten to the point where you just have to have your graveyard back. So we're going to run 1 Commit to Memory. We're going to run 2 Pull from Tomorrows. You know, the 2 blue X, where you can draw X cards, discard 1 card. Draw 4 or 5 cards at the end of their turn, even draw 3 cards at the end of their turn. Discard 1 is really going to help us out to filter our deck, to find what we need to find, to do what we need to do, to find that last Nicol Bolas, to find that Tezzeret, to find that kill spell. Whatever we need, Pull from Tomorrow, I think, is the way to go now. I think Pull from Tomorrow is going to be the card that people are going to start looking to. Even over Glimmer of Genius. No, there's no Anticipates in this deck. I think Pull from Tomorrow with just 2 blue and X at instant speed is a really good card that people aren't really giving it as much credit as I think it deserves. So we're going to run 2 of those in the main. And then a new card, Supreme Will. That's the blue and 2 that you can counter target spell unless its controller pays 3, or you can look at the top 4 cards of your library, put 1 in your hand, the rest on bottom. I'm running this over Glimmer because you can counter a spell with it. It gives you another counter spell, but it also gives you the utility to look at 4 cards, put 1 in your hand, look at your next 4 draws, put the best of those 4 into your hand, put the rest on bottom to get rid of them. So it's kind of like a 2-edged sword. You can do one or you can do the other. And it's also an instant speed, so you can flash it back with the Torrential Gearhulk to counter a spell, or, of course, to filter your deck to find what you need to find. So we're going to run 3 of those because I think they're going to be really, really good. I think they've got a lot of use in the current meta, especially if you're playing blue. Blue is always looking for cards, and it also needs counter spells, and this does both on turn 3. So I think it's going to be fine. I think it's going to be a good card. So we're going to run 3 of those. And then 4 Unlicensed Disintegration. We don't have a lot of kill spells in here. We have 3 Fatal Push and 4 Unlicensed Disintegration. But we also have Torrential Gearhulk to flash them back. So it's like we have 14 kill spells. The thing with Unlicensed Disintegration, it's a black-red and a colorless. It says destroy target creature. If you control an artifact, deal 3 damage to that creature's controller. With Tezzeret, we're going to be controlling a lot of artifacts. We should have artifacts most of the time with this deck. You want to be able to have those extra artifacts If you're getting rid of your artifacts, it's only so that you can tap out to play Kalitas. That's the only reason that you would need to get rid of all your artifacts. So as long as we have an artifact on hand, Unlicensed Disintegration destroys target creature and deals 3 damage to that creature's controller. So for 3 mana, you get a kill spell and a lightning bolt, all at instant speed, as long as you control an artifact. We are going to be controlling artifacts, whether it's the artifact off of Tezzeret, or it's the fact that we have a Torrential Gearhulk on the battlefield, because Torrential Gearhulk is an artifact creature and counts in this instance. So we're going to have 4 Unlicensed Disintegration because it's just so good. It's 3 mana. You can deal 12 damage to your opponent, destroy 4 creatures, and then flash them back to do it again. So that's the package. Now for the lands, we're going to run 27 lands in this deck. We're going to run 2 of the Canyon Slough, the in the battlefield tapped cycling lands. We're going to run 2 Feeded Pool, 4 Spirebluff Canal, 3 Sunken Hollow, 3 Smoldering Marsh, 3 Evolving Wilds that will also help our Revolt trigger for Fatal Push, 4 islands, 5 swamps, and 3 swamps, and 3 mountains to round out our 27 lands in the deck. I think 27 lands is a lot, not when you're playing Control, because you want to be able to play those lands, you want to be able to play 1 or 2 spells a turn, you want to have mana up to counter, you want to have mana up to kill, and you're also talking 7 cost Planeswalkers. So what happens if you can't find your Tezzeret? Well, you got to make it 7 lands, and boom, play your Nicol Bolas. So you're going to need some extra lands. And if you are getting flooded in your mana, you do have 4 of the cycle lands that you can cycle away if you need to draw different cards in certain instances. So that's your 60 card Grixis Control deck. Moving on to the sideboard, it's pretty simple. We got a couple of new cards, but most of it's stuff we've seen before. We're going to run 2 of the Bantu's Last Reckoning just for the aggro decks. Now I know, you tap 3, you don't get to untap on your next turn. But if they have just flooded the board with little 1-drops and haste creatures and this, that, and other, for 3 mana is a lot quicker than 5 or 6 mana to just wipe the board. Now, yeah, you're going to have to take a turn off, and that's fine. But they're essentially having to take a turn off too because you've wiped their board. Now, they may play something with haste on that turn, and there's nothing you can do about it, but at least you're only going to take 1 or 2 instead of 12 or 13. So we're going to run 2 of those in the sideboard. They'll come in with the aggro matches. They'll come in if we're playing like a white weenie deck, or if we're playing like a mono red aggro deck or something like that. They would come in for that. And then we're going to run 2 Sweltering Suns, which is also another sweeper, but it's a sweeper in the instance where you get a bunch of little bitty creatures and all you got your red mana. We're going to run 2 of those to be able to untap on our next turn. Bantu's Last Reckoning will do it, but if they're huge creatures, the Sweltering Sun is not going to help. So your Bantu's Last Reckoning will be for the big creatures. Your Sweltering Suns if they put a whole bunch of little bitty tokens out, or if they put a bunch of little 1/1s out, and you get to untap on your next turn with Sweltering Sun that you don't get to do with Bantu. So then we have 2 Elder Deep Fiends in the deck for late game, for times where we need to tap them down, times we need to tap out their creatures, times we need to Cryptic Command their lands and stuff like that. So that's going to be in there for that. And then we run 1 Sphinx of the Final Word for the mirror. You can't counter it. It has hexproof in my instance, and sorcerers can't be countered. So that's going to be good for the mirror. That's going to be good for the blue-black matchup. It's going to be good for the blue-white matchup. Anything that's trying to counter what you're doing, you're going to want to bring in the Sphinx so that you can kind of lock them out and they not be able to do that. And then, of course, they also can't kill it. And it's also a big 5/5 flyer, so that's a big body that they have to deal with that they can't just use their spot removal on. So they're going to have a board wipe or a sacrifice, spell or something like that to be able to deal with it. And usually that's going to be hard for them to find. So we're going to run 1 Sphinx of the Final Word, 2 Kefnet, the indestructible blue god that lets you draw cards. That's in there in case they're running a lot of kill spells, they're running a lot of board wipes. You want to bring in your Kefnet, you want to bring in your Sphinx of the Final Word, and then just sit there and let them do what they're going to do, because unless they exile it, they can't get rid of it. And also it can't attack or block unless, certain requirements are met, and that's fine. We're going to use Kefnet mainly to draw cards when we need to, and also when we can finally meet the requirement, we have 7 cards in hand. And we're going to have 7 cards in hand a lot because of Pull from Tomorrow and Kefnet's draw ability and things like that. We should be able to attack with it as many times as we want to, or block with it being indestructible. So we got 2 cabinets in the side. Then we're going to run 3 Glory Bringers in the side. Extra spot removal, haste creature, flying 4/4, exert it, deal 4 damage to a creature. We're running 3 in the sideboard just to have extra creatures in case they, wipe out everything we've got and we can't really find anything. If we're running a real heavy kill spell deck, counter spell deck, this will just add 3 more targets that they don't know about that we can bring in as extra, because usually when you're playing against a control deck that's only going to run 7 creatures, during sideboard they'll take a lot of their kill spells out because they know they don't need them and it's just a lot of dead cards in their hand. So during sideboard you bring in more creatures and it kind of throws them off. They may have the answers to a couple of your creatures at first, but eventually they're going to run out of kill spells, and you're steady running in creatures and counter spells and your own kill spells and draw spells and everything like that. So bringing in the extra creatures in the sideboard kind of makes sense so that you can kind of throw them off their game. And then finally we're going to run 1 of Nixilis Reignited, the 5-cost Planeswalker. We're going to running him basically for his draw ability and also his kill ability. We're probably not going to make it to his ultimate because he's going to be a pretty big target, but we have him in there in case we need to draw extra spells and also have extra kill spells for any situation. So that is Grixis Control. That's the deck tech that we're going to run. That's what we're going to be playing at Game Day in August for Hour of Devastation. We'll also be playing it online on Twitch once the cards are released online in the next couple of weeks. You can follow me on Twitter at UntappedMTG to know when I will be streaming that. We'll be playing this deck. We'll be testing it, find out just how good it is with the current meta. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Twitter, like I said, at untappedmtg.com. You can like, subscribe to this video, and you'll know when I'm going to make new videos. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. If there's other videos you'd like to see, other decks you'd like to see built, you can leave that in the comments. You can always just you can message me on Twitter. My DM are open for anybody that wants to come by and say hi. So yeah, that's our deck tech for this week. Grixis Control. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by, and we will see you next time.